Rick Veitch was part of the first class of the Kubert School that was designed to teach the next great group of artists in the comic book industry. And that first class was full of Hall of Famers: Steve Bissette, John Toddleben, Tim Truman, and Rick Veitch. But before Rick Veitch even went to school, he actually had published an underground comic with his brother Tom, and that comic is called Two-Fisted Zombies. It's one of my favorite single issue comic books, and I can't believe that this is an artist's first work in the comic book industry. So I'm going to flip the camera around, put this under the microscope, and you're going to take a look at this because there's so much great just knowledge in here. It's a young artist just wearing his influences on his sleeves, and we kind of get to see where Rick Veitch, what kind of comics he was growing up on and reading before he made it into the industry, on things such as Swamp Thing and Brat Pack and The One and the King Hell Heroica series that he's been doing now. This is the earliest Rick Veitch that we have in published work. So stay tuned and watch this video until the end. And I'm back. My name is Taylor. This is Taylor Talks Comics. This is part of my 31 days of horror comics, where every day of October I am showing off a different horror comic or horror comic related video to show off the greatness of this genre in this great medium. So give the video a thumbs up, comment down below with your thoughts. I want to know what the earliest works of your favorite artists are. I love seeing an artist at the very beginning of their career to see how they develop and grow, and then just kind of what influences they're pulling from for their debut. So comment down below with those thoughts, and subscribe and hit the bell notification icon because you don't want to miss out on any of my videos throughout the month of October. So yeah, this is Tales of Night Spawned Contagion, Two-Fisted Zombies. This was put out by Last Gasp, and every once in a while, I haven't looked at the website for this book in particular, but every once in a while, their website that they still have will have copies of this. It's not that hard to find a copy of this for a decent price. But we're going to open it up here, and right away, you can see they're using every bit of the comic. Like, there's not a single page of this comic that has advertisement on it or is wasted at all. Even the back cover, everything's being used, but it's printed on this newsprint paper. And this was Rick Veitch, who was credited with the story and art, and then story, words, and lettering in the back cover, and the color separations are by Tom Veitch. So the back cover is a piece by Tom Veitch with some information about Last Gasp Comics. And like, the storytelling in this is amazing for being an artist's earliest work. It was actually said that this was part of his portfolio that he sent away to the Kubert School to get accepted. And I guess guys like Bissette, Toddleben, and Tim Truman had already had copies of this themselves as a fan, and they're kind of amazed that Rick Veitch was joining them as a fellow student in the school. So I'm going to flip through here and kind of point out the story to you, and then some other influences that I'm seeing right away and things. So this is done Underground Comics with an X, and it's still put out by Last Gasp. And you can tell that Rick Veitch leans heavier onto the side of the underground comics scene as like a Spain Rodriguez and a Richard Corbin. You can see that like with these faces here and the lettering. That's such a Spain Rodriguez type lettering there, which the lettering was done by Tom Veitch, but still you can see the influence in there. I love right away the storytelling here of the rain and the lightning crackling. So it's like dark because rainy, and then the lightning shows a bright scene there, and then it just keeps going back and forth between this lightning and whatnot. And it goes that here too, like the 9-panel grid, but it's like an uneven lightning, like as it should be, but it fits this like storytelling motif with this like diagonal device as this guy's smashing this other character with an axe. And right here, how can you make a slave out of a dead man? What kind of world is inhabited by ghouls who murder for no reason? And that's the kind of story that we're telling here. So I mentioned the underground comics that Rick Veitch was influenced by. Right away, the double page spread, instantly think of Jack Kirby, but anytime I see this, especially with the title lettering on top. And Rick Veitch was definitely a fan of Kirby. I knew this for a long time because you can see in all of his work the influence that Kirby has on his artwork. And I think Rick Veitch even named his son Kirby, so obviously he has a love and adoration for the king. You see this pit of humans that they are killing off and throwing these new slave zombies into this pit down here below. And again, anything with the guns and the figure drawing just reminds me of Spain Rodriguez so much. But this is obviously post-apocalyptic. You can see this great character design here too. The character designs throughout this are all amazing. That's definitely a Kirby-esque like helmet on this character right here. And this reminds me of like the Punisher, something. But I think it predates the Punisher actually. This is 1973 was the Punisher. I don't think he was around yet. But also again Spain Rodriguez with a big gun. So it's like this mashup of Underground Comics plus Jack Kirby, which is just so cool. And I love all the Zipatone that he's using throughout here too. Like the fact that he was able to do this, or able to know how to use Zipatone at such an early point in his career is quite amazing. And it's like, this is totally Spain Rodriguez as well. And just like the animated sequence of these, this fight choreography and this like movement of this character stabbing this guy in the neck and just working his way down through, breaking into this Enterprise, this castle or whatever. In this animated sequence here with the noose coming down slowly and then strangling this guy. It's just such cool work, and it's just amazing to see Rick Veitch working on this level. I love this too, the pulling off of the mask. You can see like the stretching of the fabric right there, with the mouth even being stretched. Like it's such a thoughtful cartoonist. I've always thought that about him, because like the mask is like a full straight teeth, right? But here it bends because it's getting stretched out. And that's his ugly face underneath. So what's going on is there's two like armies, I guess. This is like post-apocalyptic, but predates Mad Max. So a lot of this is kind of innovative from Rick Veitch. But there's these two kind of warring armies or gangs. And this guy, I'm terrible with character names, is like challenging our guy with the skull character to a duel for whoever takes ownership of all the slaves that they have underneath their midst to do their bidding for him. And this is such a Kirby-esque helmet that he's putting on. You can even see some of the Kirby squiggles that's a signature Kirby aspect there. So now these are the two in their army going into like the gladiators into war. And the first guy that we see actually tricks him. He puts the helmet onto a zombie of sorts, and then he blows, like he's got a bomb attached to him, and then he explodes. And that's the exploded enemy, as the other guy's going to take over the enslaved characters. And you can see he gets thrown down into a pit, but he's not quite dead. He's got an eye open there as it's hanging off his face. So another influence in here is obviously Harvey Kurtzman War Comics, even with the name Two-Fisted Zombies. So it's this great mashup of like EC comics of the 50s to the underground comics of the 60s and 70s and Kirby of the 60s and 70s, all like wearing these on his sleeve and just constant like, just, that's one of the great things about seeing a cartoonist in the earliest stages of the career, because they're just like wearing all their influences on sleeves and just putting every idea they possibly have onto paper, whether or not it makes a great story or whatnot. So you get like this like massive like unloading of great ideas. And you can even see like Rick Veitch is working with the panel layouts all throughout here, like you saw in the very beginning even. And that's just something that was a signature of Rick Veitch and Steve Bissette in Swamp Thing in the 80s with Alan Moore's run. And this is just, again, more Spain Rodriguez type aspects here with the whole, and then a whole gang of zombies, Land of the Dead, as they're getting vengeance on him. And then it finishes off with another great two-page spread. And just such a great work here. But this is really an amazing comic. I'm so excited to have this in my collection. The great cover too, where the zombie's like just picking the brains out of this human who's still somewhat alive. Obviously his eyes are open and his skull just looks like a pumpkin. I don't know, just insane stuff. But I want to know what you think is a great debut for a cartoonist that you're aware of. Put that down in the comments below. Tell me your thoughts on Rick Veitch, on Two-Fisted Zombies, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon, and most importantly, keep talking comics.